I am standing next to Trinity Church, where the father of the spirit of modern journalism, John Peter Zenger, is buried in an unmarked grave. Zenger was put in jail in 1732 by the British governor of New York, William Cosby, after he wrote in his paper that the Cosby administration was corrupt. Zenger was arrested on a charge of seditious libel because he was informing New Yorkers that the Cosby administration was corrupt. A jury of New Yorkers set him free after 8 months in jail, but Zenger's message was heard. A short time later, the American nation was born, and the British governor of New York was sent home. My name is Doug Biviano, and I'm challenging an incumbent for assembly because I agree with the Daily News and the New York Times to remove elected officials who have caused the corruption and economic meltdown in our state. I just don't understand why they don't cover my campaign or anyone else's campaign. Since there are so few races this year caused by a corrupt election system, it makes it very hard to understand why my race against the election law chairperson, Joan Millman, who is responsible for the election law that throws off dozens of challengers each year, receives no coverage from the press. It is clear that the spirit and message of John Peter Zenger is no longer part of New York journalism today. That is why today I'm going to visit the headquarters of the New York news media companies and ask them to cover my race to throw the bums out for ruining our state.
My name is Miriam Goldman, and I believe that the media and the newspapers should be covering the races, and I believe that is important because we need to get most of the people out of Albany.
I want the abuse to stop of people, politicians, taking over the syndicate of the city or the neighborhood, and then they promise a lot of things at the time of voting, and after that, it all stays the same.
Do you think the newspapers are keeping you well informed?
No.
Hi, I'm Linda Doman. I'm a Brooklyn Heights resident, and we should have coverage by the New York City press, like the Daily News. And I wish the Daily News would cover our local races.
Hi, I'm Doug Biviano. I'm running for state assembly. I try to get in to talk to the Daily News. They keep saying throw the bums out, but they never meet with the candidates or interview the candidates who are challenging the incumbents.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. You will. 16-8.
16-8. Yeah, hello. Justice Kagan. And Justice Ginsburg assured me that she
Yeah, hi, my name's Doug Biviano. I'm a candidate for state assembly in Brooklyn. Can I speak with somebody in the editorial board? Well, I keep sending emails and leaving messages and nobody gets back to me. Is there any way to sit and meet with a city desk, the editorial board? Can I set an appointment?
It's like Doug's race.
I think the local papers have still been ignoring the races. The Times, of course, is, and there's just too many people sitting in Albany doing nothing or screwing things up, and they're not being covered as to what they're being done, what has to be done with it.
Let's try the New York Times. I'm going to try and get in and meet with the reporter or the editorial board here to cover the race.
Yeah. Okay, great. But so far there hasn't been any reporting either. Okay, so you don't endorse in every race, and you don't reach out to all of the candidates. I want to throw the bums out. You know my name. I'm Doug Biviano. You know the race I'm in. You don't know the race I'm in. Yeah, I'm running against Joan Millman, who's the election law chairperson. That's in Brooklyn's 52nd. She controls the election law, and she keeps the election law so you can't throw the bums out. And if you guys want to throw the bums out, then maybe you should meet with me. Hello? She hung up with me. On May 16th, the New York Times did an editorial saying that if Albany incumbents don't change their corrupt and dysfunctional ways,
take note and remove them from office. Does the New York Times think that Albany's fixed? I'm one of the few candidates in all of New York challenging the incumbents in Albany, yet the New York Times won't meet with me. In fact, they hung up on me. Now we're going to try WNBC. We'll see if Gay Pressman will talk to me.
I'll tell you this, we're really Michael Moore.
Yeah, hi, is this the assignment desk at WNBC? Hi, my name's Doug Biviano. I'm running for State Assembly in Brooklyn's 52nd District. And is there any way I could meet with Gay Pressman or anybody to talk about the campaign? Nobody's covering our campaigns. There's only a handful of people running against the incumbents. Everybody's saying throw the bums out, but nobody's covering us.
I'm Mark Friedman from Brooklyn Heights. I'm here to tell all the daily newspapers that they should be covering the race for the State Assembly.
Okay.
The New York Post does story after story about all the corruption in Albany and throwing the bums out, yet they're not covering any of the few challenges that there are to throw the bums out.
We actually can't give out any numbers to anyone in this building, so I really can't help you on that.
So there's no way to get to the press?
No?
You don't have any numbers, nothing?
We can't give out any numbers.
Is there anyone you could call and say there's a New York State candidate here in the lobby?
I'm sure New York will cover my race to throw an election law chairperson, Joan Millman. Come with me and we'll ask. Hi, how are you? Hi, I'm Doug Biviano. I'm running for New York State Assembly. I'm on the ballot in the primary in September. Can I speak with the political? You know, there are a few candidates out there actually running a campaign. We're working really hard. We're trying to meet the people. We're listening to the people. And we're challenging these entrenched incumbents that are at the heart of the dysfunctionalism in Albany. And it seems now we have to court the press and work at the press interviewing us as opposed to the press coming out and asking us what's going on, finding out, talking to the people about our candidacies, and actually reporting. It seems to have become backwards over the course of decades here in New York. It used to be the press would follow the rest of this. Whoa, a lot of candidates? Wait, there aren't a lot of candidates. Do you know how many challengers there are in New York City? There's only like 3 or 4 in New York City. Okay. Yeah, the event is called campaigning. That happens every day. Why wouldn't you interview? You're not going to do any interviews of any of the candidates? This isn't about campaigning, isn't about having events, it's about actually knocking on doors. It's actually meeting the people and talking about to them directly about what's important. Is there a disconnect? Is there somebody I could speak to about this dysfunctionalism and our press as well? Because I don't know if anybody gets what it takes to challenge these incumbents. Well, the Tiffany Network, which produced such great reporters as Edwin R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite, will they cover my race against the Election Law Committee chairperson Joan Millman, who protects the election law. I'm running for office to fight corruption in Albany, to keep our senior centers and our firehouses open, and they won't even talk to me at WCBS. How come Channel 13, who's funded by New Yorkers' tax money, doesn't have a show to keep New Yorkers informed about their government? What has gone wrong with the New York media? Even the Eyewitness News won't cover my campaign to clean up dysfunctionalism in Albany.
Hi, my name is Sam Green. I'm a resident of Brooklyn Heights. We have a terrible problem that's not being reported by the press, and we, the taxpayers, are in a lot of trouble because
John Peter Zenger proved that an informed public makes a difference. I truly believe that if the press covered challenges like myself, good people would be elected to Albany who would begin to solve the problems of dysfunctionalism and corruption in our state government. That is why I made this video about the press. My name is Doug Biviano, and I'm running for State Assembly.